Welcome everyone to today's Silicon Valley Forum Fireside Chat, autonomous AI agents to detect gun violence before it starts. And we're going to be talking with the co-founders of Gunsens. Before we get into the conversation, we've got a couple of announcements. The Silicon Valley Forum, we are a California-based 501c3 nonprofit organization. Our mission is to foster innovation, entrepreneurship, and leadership in Silicon Valley and throughout the world. We achieve our mission through events, programs, and conferences where we function as a center of knowledge and connections, covering everything from the latest tech trends to the startup and investment ecosystem. And our activities are aimed to educate, train, inspire, and connect technologists, entrepreneurs, and corporates and investors. We've got a few events coming up. Our next Silicon Valley Forum Fireside Chat will be with Gary Goldstein, also from the Bay Area, on modernizing and innovating HR operations. We'll have some other events in the summer that are yet to be scheduled, but in the fall, we've got the California Coastal Cleanup Day in Santa Clara County, and we are scheduling our State of the Global Economy Luncheon somewhere in Silicon Valley for December 11th. The lawyers like us to read this disclaimer that the Silicon Valley Forum, a California Public Benefit Corporation, SVF, does not endorse or sponsor any commercial product, service, or activity. SVF's production of this event does not constitute endorsement by SVF or its representatives, and all SVF programs and services are extended to the public on a non-discriminatory basis. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we are dependent upon the public support, and we thank you for that support. And the Silicon Valley Forum Fireside Chat series is sponsored by the following corporations: Blocks, Forensic Financial Services, and Global Tactics. So with that said, we will get out of stop sharing and get into the conversation. So the first question, we've got some very interesting individuals here that I've gotten to know over time. Michael Lyon and Bret Martin, who are not your typical startup founders, entrepreneurs. These are two gentlemen that have a lot of years of experience in industry, in life. And so it's been refreshing as someone who also has experience to talk to these gentlemen and getting to know them and their business on their workings around putting together their company called Gunsens. But the first question I always pose when we start these sessions is three questions. What's the problem you're solving? Who are you solving it for? And how are you solving it? So gentlemen, over to you. Let's address those very simple questions. And then we'll get to the conversation more about Gunsens, the strategic direction, where you're heading with this, where are the opportunities, who are your customers, you know, how are you fundraising, if you are fundraising, all that fun stuff. But those three questions over to you, and I'll let either Michael or Bret take the first swing.
Bret, why didn't you take the first swing since it's sales related?
You got it. Be happy to. Well, the problem's real easy. We started off the company about a handful of years ago as an idea to stop mass shootings in schools. And what we quickly realized is we can stop mass shootings and even individual shootings almost anywhere on the planet. So the problem we're solving is trying to give victims back the time to react by being the fastest possible detection technology out there. And in our case, we're talking sub-second detection time frame, so that you then have actionable information to either run away from harm, or if you're a first responder, where harm is and how to go neutralize it very, very quickly. The market, as I just gave away, we started off in the school education, K through university space, but we quickly realized shortly thereafter, yes, that is a viable market for us, but we're also a horizontal play. We start to look like infrastructure in almost every market known to man. How we do it is a big secret. Patents have been filed, but I can tell you we're using some of the latest in computer vision and spectrum vision systems connected with neural network chips, all inside of an edge-based device. No traffic has to go across the public or private internet to be listened to by a human. We wanted to bake out the human element from the detection phase, because what the audience may not know is, obviously we've got a bunch of folks on the call here. If all of us saw one situation in life, we'd all see it 80 or 90% the same. And it's that delta, that 10 or 20% that gets humanity into trouble, or worse, reaction time is taken away from those who need it. So we wanted to invent a technology that was fully autonomous, fully automatic, stands on its own two legs as a single device, or as a mesh of hundreds or thousands of devices, but yet give you actionable data upon a detection on where the threat is, where the threat is moving to, and again, victims and potential victims, how to move away from it safely without boxing yourself into a corner. And if you're a first responder, give you the breadcrumb trail, electronically speaking, to the last known good position of that perpetrator so that you can neutralize it very, very quickly. So that's kind of a thumbnail, what we're up to at Gunsens.
Michael, do you anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's good points by Bret. The unit is very unique in regard to AI. We use multi-factor authentication with an accuracy that is getting close to 100%, 99.2% today, fully autonomous at the edge. No need for back-end servers, no need for cloud-based servers. Where AI and inferencing is done, it's expensive and time-consuming. So time is life for us, and the quicker we can detect a weapon, and the quicker we can announce that detection to those who need to know, first responders and the public, the more lives we will save.
Well, in our conversations, in the last few years, as we've gotten to know each other, I've learned that there are multiple use cases, and I'd like to kind of go deeper into that. My understanding that you've got a use case, let's say, the school system, and I'd like you to kind of address that, and then other, and I'll use the word community use case. So I don't know if that's the right word, but I think of schools, community centers, that type. But I'd like you to address more deeper in that, and other use cases that's around the community, as well as the defense component, and how this could be used within the Department of Defense or Homeland Security. And so there's the government use case as well. So kind of two questions there. Maybe there's a third one as well, but let's address those two specific use cases.
Yeah, sure, that'd be great. Thank you. Well, schools today, for those of you who have kids in school and approach school properties, you may know that schools today have CCTV camera systems. They sometimes have what I will, and the company will call, walkthrough style airport security systems, magnetometers, millimeter wave, thermal differentiation kinds of technology at door thresholds. But it really doesn't address the bad guys carrying guns into schools. Bad guys will typically, leave a weapon at the edge of a fence line, then pass through security, go out the side or back of that property, pick up a weapon, and then, go to cause harm. Our technology is designed to be put around the perimeter of a school, out in the parking lots of a school, in the hallways, in the bathrooms, in the locker rooms. And the interesting piece that I think Aaron's picking up on here is our technology is the first security product that we're aware of that is actually a privacy maintaining platform, meaning that when we're in a bathroom detecting guns, that's all we're detecting. We're simply looking at frames of data for the presence of a weapon. If that's detected, we then look for the multi-factor piece. We're looking for content, context, and we're looking for the repetition of that at frame rate speeds for just a few frames. Schools today don't have that ability. Adults are not allowed into the lavatories. Police are not allowed into the lavatories unless there's an actual emergency at hand. So kids today can go to those lavatories, which if you look at mass shootings, almost 100% of mass shootings in the US start from a young man in the lavatory. racking and loading the gun, getting their minds staged, as the FBI calls it, and picking targets in their head, picking students, teachers, what am I going to do? Where am I going to do? How am I going to go do it? They spend 30 seconds to 18 minutes in that environment. And our technology is aimed at taking that time and shrinking it to the first second that we detect that weapon, getting a school resource officer, getting a law enforcement officer on the scene rather instantaneously. The outbound notification is an SMS. It goes over, just as quickly as anybody's text messages can go to the police, can go to the public. Whoever needs to be notified is notified in that kind of time frame. And essentially, you shut the crime down before it starts. Same thing is true in the defense space, in the military space, slightly different set of audiences. And again, one of the neat attributes of our technology is it's tunable. So in a school environment, you'd probably want to set the thresholds for detection up to 100%. Weapons are just not permitted on campus, period, whether it's a water pistol and somebody's threatening somebody with it, or it's an actual weapon. On a military base and the government installations, weapons may be appropriate, weapons may be ordinary and normal, and our system is tunable down to the individual sensors, such that if you're out near, let's say, a firing range on a military base, weapons are present, whether they're shouldered, holstered, or they're in a soldier's hand. Alternatively, if you're in a barracks and some weapon is removed from a shoulder at rest position or taken from a holder at rest and comes to a ready or low ready, you may want to detect that, because that may not be a normal and acceptable situation in a barracks. And again, you can tune it any way you want to in its current incarnation across an installation. As we move into the near future, and I'll let Michael talk more about this, we are aiming to take this technology today that looks like a smoke detector and shrinking it to an item that is about 3/8 of an inch thick and about the size of a credit card. It's intended to be a wearable. It's intended to be Velcro on the back of a flak jacket, on the back of a running, jogger's suit for recreational need. But the idea here is to take this technology, make it portable, make it battery operated, and allow citizens and soldiers to be protected on their six, so that nobody's sneaking up behind them. And as the vision systems get accurate enough, we'll take it out quite a distance, and it may actually be an anti-sniper kind of a capability, so that our men and women in uniform have that anti-sniper, anti-ambush capability.
Yeah, you covered it pretty well. I just want to reiterate some of the commercial aspects of the technology. So in regard to your question, Aaron, for the public good, smart cities and smart buildings. I mean, obviously, it's the wave of the future. We're all looking for protection in public spaces. The unit is indoor, outdoor mounted, mounts anywhere you want it mounted today. It is IP67 rated, so it can be in good weather and bad weather, hot and cold, doesn't matter. But the idea is that we are the spear of detection for weapons and threats in general. But it does take a community, it does take these smart cities of technology to communicate that too. So all we do is we're that spear at the front end, detecting weapons in sub 1 second timeframes. Then we can alert first responders. We can alert these smart cities and smart buildings to the threat. We can provide digital twins, so first responders have actionable advice in regard to where the threats are in real time. In 2D and 3D, we can provide both. The idea is that we buy back time, and time is really life, and time is critical. The average mass shooting in the United States, schools specifically, takes about 90 seconds. And we came up, and Bret came up with the 1890 rule, which says that the first responders on average take about 18 minutes to respond and to get onto a particular campus or a particular threatening situation where a weapon is present. 18 minutes. The average mass shooting in a school lasts about 90 seconds. So when they've arrived, 17 and a half minutes have elapsed, or 16 and a half minutes have elapsed. The gunman has done the damage that he wanted to do. They have fled the scene or committed suicide, and the event is over. So we're buying back that time prior to that 18 minutes and getting them on campus as soon as possible, or on premise as soon as possible, to save lives, protect lives, and give actionable awareness to first responders and the public.
So let me take that question, that point, Michael, a little bit further. So when I think about delayed response, I think most people, myself, are thinking about Uvalde, Texas.
Yes.
So how much are you working with local law enforcement, working with school administrators? How would your device work in a Uvalde situation in collaboration with law enforcement to respond quicker?
So it's a great question, Aaron, and Uvalde and several others are really good use cases. So we're in communication, obviously, with the FBI in regard to all of these cases. And Uvalde, for being specific, this gunman showed up many minutes before the first shot rang out, crashed his truck into a ditch on the highway, and started running towards the school. He was approached by several people minutes and minutes before the first shot rang out. He was approached by a mortuary attendant, and then the first shots rang out. He took pot shots at them. He ran probably 100 yards from the highway to the school, where he found an open door. So in our instance, Gunsens would have been installed, let's say, first on the perimeter of the building, at fencing at the perimeter location. We would have detected him as soon as that weapon came out. So he's 100 yards, 90 yards from the school. He's maybe a minute or two from the door that was left ajar. Now we're installed, on the perimeter. We're installed in the yard. We're installed on the doors. We're installed on the internally to the building. As soon as we would have detected a weapon, a minute or two before the first shot, we would have contacted first responders. We know from data that first responders were close by in the field. They would have been notified in about 4 or 5 seconds on their laptop with their cell phone, with an Amber Alert showing exact location. We would have sent an API out to the school administrator and to the principal. We would have sent a door locking signal out to the school, which would have locked their Motorola security system down and would locked all of the doors. It would have shown that door being ajar, and now the school administrator or the security officer on board could have run towards that door. We're giving them an exact location, and that door could have been locked. The perpetrator here, the gunman here, would have never gotten in. First responders would have been on the field, on campus, a minute, 30 seconds before the first shot rang out, and nobody had to die.
And I think if I can add on to that, Michael, I think for the people listening here, several things happen automatically behind the scenes. When we make a detection, we have a specific geospatial location of where we believe that weapon to be in space. So we will provide a LON, LAT, and Z piece of data as part of that payload that goes to law enforcement, that goes to the public in terms of a map. So that once we make that very first discrimination that a weapon is present, doesn't have to be fired, it just has to be present. All of that information starts going to the field, and that looks like it comes in 3 waves at this point. You get an Amber Alert, you get a map of where you are versus relative to where the position of the gun was detected, and if it's an indoor space, you further take that map and drill down, and you get an indoor floor plan by Z-axis, so that we know where that perpetrator is coming and going to. Again, all of this is to provide actionable data, so we create fewer victims, and a faster path to neutralization for law enforcement, first responders, and the military who need to find that bogey and take it out. Today's technology, we're up against three different camps, in some cases, a 30-year-old industry out there that we're competing against with this new generation technology. They can't tell you specifically where a threat is. And if they can, it's after a human in the loop gets involved and makes a decision, meaning that that data, audio and or visual data, has to go across the public internet, which means you're transmitting huge data files and sending it somewhere to a security operations center. That individual's got the headphones on to listen to the audio track. They've got tools in front of them to rewind and replay the feeds with filtering systems on it. By the time that human makes a determination whether something is an audio or visual event or both, minutes have gone by. And we get back to the 1890 rule. If it takes law enforcement, once 911 is called, 18 to 20 minutes to get on campus, and it only takes 90 seconds for an event to be over, the nature of having us tell the public, tell the first responders, tell the military what's going on, where it's going on, and where it's going to in near real time, and we're talking SMS seconds of time, that's an advantage, we think, over our competition. And right now, nobody is able to present data as fast and as accurate as we are.
So for the attendees, I've enabled cameras and microphones. And so I welcome general questions. I know my friend and colleague, George Davis, is on here, who does a lot of risk assessment. And I've got, actually, I'm in a conference room in Utah where I've got a young man across the table who did service in the Marine Corps. So I welcome questions. But I guess with respect to the Department of Defense and military aspect, Bret, as a civilian contractor, I did extensive work in Afghanistan, where we were deploying fiber optic cables in some really challenging areas of the country. And I remember being in Helmand province and in the southern part of the country, and we were, all of a sudden under fire. And the same thing, and that was kind of a flat terrain. There were some dwellings in the distance, and so the firing was coming from there. I remember another circumstance in Nangarhar province, in the eastern part of the country, near the Pakistani border. That was mountainous area, and the same thing. We were coming under fire. So I'm trying to think. Clarification on the use case is that not only are you detecting, obviously, the live round, but you're able to map or pinpoint with a geolocation of where that's coming from. Is that correct? And if so, is that using satellite connectivity? I mean, I don't want you to share your trade secrets, but how does that work in a very broad range for us to understand that?
So a couple things. It is triangulation, in terms of coordinating with other sensors. When we have an array of sensors like you're describing on a site that large, they would be battery operated. Obviously, they'd be portably deployed around a larger perimeter than where you're working. And sensors will indeed talk to each other. We designed the system specifically to do that, to make sure we have the accuracy and the assurity that what we're seeing is something not, is something untoward is unfolding, rather than a peace officer or a soldier with, an ordinarily carried sidearm or shouldered long gun. In that world, we're talking another software release out. We will give you that geospatial pinpointing down to probably about a 25-foot resolution level. So you'll know which way, north, south, east, or west in our field of vision. Is it close in, medium distance, and is it far away? And we'll give you, probably a 20 or 30 degree arc of vision at which direction you should look at for the bogey. So that's coming. It's in the next release of software from what we're working on here, but it is coming, and we're working with companies to make this a portable asset that's a rechargeable asset, so it could be deployed anywhere, not just where AC is present.
Let's talk about the history of the company. Love to get, have both of you tell kind of your personal story, professional, background, and how did this company come together? What was the idea? What was that aha moment? And how did the two of you get together? And yeah, what led to the company's founding?
Let's take a look at the company before we talk about personal CVs here. The company, as an idea, about 5 to 6 years ago, was literally a retired San Jose police officer sitting down, having coffee with one of his serial entrepreneur tech buddies in Silicon Valley, reading the Mercury News, the local newspaper there in San Jose, and there was another mass shooting. I don't remember which one it was on the East Coast, but it was one of the big ones. And he literally jumped up from his chair and says, "Damn it, you're the smart technology guy. We have got to find a way to help our kids from being slaughtered in schools." And it was literally his brain reading that, knowing that AI could do something, challenging his serial entrepreneur buddy. And I think the folklore goes down in about a month and a half, 2 months. They had a block diagram of what a product would look like, what it could possibly do. A CTO was brought on immediately thereafter. Michael and I joined a couple months thereafter that, so we're right at the core of the company. And here we are. 5 years later, it took 4 to 4.5 years of product development to get it right. We've been through 2 different product styles. The first one was a wall dimmer switch, if you can believe, cramming all that technology that Michael and I have talked about into 2 cubic inches of space. It was an Herculean engineering feat. And along the way, we met a global Fortune 5 company that wants untold number of these devices. They've given us some outrageous numbers in the hundreds of thousands. But they also told us a wall dimmer switch isn't going to cut it for them. They need a device that's more outdoor capable, fence mount, guard shack mount, light post mount, J-arm mount in the side of a building. They needed overhead in hallways and intersections and cafeterias and things of that nature. So we literally had to go back and redo the industrial design. And we went from that wall dimmer switch, which we thought was going to be a cool thing, into a smoke detector now. So think of something, 7 inches around or so, about 2.5 inches thick. And Michael and the guys are shrinking that as we speak. But now we've got a universally mountable tool. And it's the first generation of a huge roadmap of products we're going to bring forward. So fun little company. There's only 7 of us in the company. We're all, but one of us, I think, engineering backgrounds. 2 of us are ex-law enforcement. I did mention the San Jose cop. We've got, and he was with the force there for 32 years, SWAT team member, hostage negotiator, urban tough guy. And the other officer that's joined us in the past year and a half or so is an ex-NYPD cop who actually was one of the founding members of the New York City Police Department's electronic crimes and electronic surveillance team many years ago. He was part of that founding team in New York City. And the rest of us are Silicon Valley entrepreneurs.
Very good. So what's your backgrounds? What is it that kind of prepared you to take on this new venture?
So
Well,
maybe if I start off with this one and just add that Dr. Greg Sansier is the original founder. And he's an expert in criminal psychology and psychology. So he knows the industry extremely well. He's the only non-tech guy on the entire team. But it's his idea out of the gate, and that's what got Gunsens started. He didn't want to violate privacy. That was core at our first outgoing, at our first business development and idea. That we didn't want to look at color, we didn't want to look at race, we didn't want to look at creed. Goes anywhere, everywhere. So as far as my background, I've been in tech in Silicon Valley since the early part of the 80s. I'm originally from London, England, and I grew up mechanically, electrically inclined. 4 years old, sitting on the floor, taking apart my mom's vacuum cleaner and wanted to know how it worked and why it worked and how did I improve it, much to her shock. But within an hour, that vacuum cleaner was put back together, and and worked for another 40 years. Always inquisitive about designing technology, improving technology. I'm a big impact guy, but in London, as you well know, Aaron, entrepreneurship was pretty much dead back in the day, back in the 80s. Nobody really cared that this young white boy had a bunch of ideas to change the world. So I had to come to Silicon Valley on a vacation, and lo and behold, everybody took my language, and my first startup got bought by Gibson Guitars. I was number 5 in a pro audio company, and I ended up running a couple of divisions of Gibson, along with supporting their R&D in Berkeley, and went on to do a couple more startups, supported startups. Peter Redford, our CEO, luminary in Silicon Valley, and I did another startup together in battery technology. And he approached me very early on that he needed some of my expertise in logistics, engineering, manufacturing, supply chain, the global market, to come on board and to scale this company. Excited to be here. It's definitely impact, which is in my lane, 110%.
Very good. George put in the chat a couple of questions going back to your product. Are you detecting a shot going off, or do you detect the weapon before it is fired?
It's weapons before they are fired. In our mind, if you're detecting a shot, it's too late. Harm's been done or worse. And everybody that we're aware of that we're competing against is pretty much a reactive technology. We wanted to be the first proactive and give the time equation back to the good people rather than letting the bad people get away with what they do.
Yeah, it's a vision-based system. Today it looks out 200 feet at 360 degrees, looking for the presence of a weapon where a weapon doesn't belong. Like I said earlier, it's a multi-factor authentication system. It's just not AI imaging. And as Moore's law dictates, the resolution and speed of cameras will increase and double year over year. We anticipate, being 450 feet out, in the next 12 months, and within a couple of years, maybe out 2 miles for sniper detection.
That brings up my next question that I've always asked when I meet companies of all sizes, but about the timeline. So you kind of talked about the previous 5 years. What does the next 5 years look like? What does success look like 5 years from now? And then where do you need to position your company in 3 years to give you the traction necessary to achieve those 5-year KPIs?
I'll let Bret run with that first, and I'll follow up.
Yeah, so I don't want to use the unicorn word, but I think that's probably the only way you can describe what we're looking at here. I've been in high tech for 44 years, and I've not yet worked for a company that has a value proposition and a product roadmap like Gunsens has. So our roadmap shows product shipping here before July 4th, which we are now happily along that road path and having positive gates as we move forward here. So we're anticipating making that. We've already got customers that will take us probably in excess of $300 million of revenue in 2 years. Our plan is to do that in 3 years. I think we're going to greatly exceed that. Our goal is to ship 1 million units in 3 years, and I think we're going to exceed that number as well. The roadmap we've got that accompanies this first product goes in multiple directions. Obviously, it goes in the military defense world, it goes in the aerospace world, it goes in the recreation world, it goes into the drone space, which we didn't even talk about yet. We've actually been asked to provide the payload minus the industrial design for a warfighter situation over in the far east, as you can imagine what's going on over there, to be detecting weapons, at altitude. So there are multiple iterations. There's an automotive derivative of this product to keep peace officers from being assassinated in their vehicles. I like to be kind of smart and call this the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, pretty much every vertical, we're already talking to companies in smart cities. I've got a world-class integrator and consulting company, a group called Capgemini, who's building digital twins for airports of the future and using my technology, the Gunsens system, as a layer in that digital twin for airports to understand how they can fortify an airport from gun threats and gunmen, all the way from the parking garage through the passenger terminal and onto the air side, in case you've got weaponry that comes on toward the airport from the supply side outside the passenger world. So I think we're going to be extraordinarily busy, Aaron, for 5 years. As Michael said, every year we will have feature function performance improvement that'll double, quadruple based on Moore's law. It's an amazing, amazing company to be associated with. And our main goal, again, for the audience, we have 3 go-to-market strategies, or threads, I should say, in our strategy. One is any business or end user technology sales will be handled by distribution, and they will handle single and multi-tier sales through their distribution channel. And Gunsens will focus on OEM opportunities and licensing opportunities, which is where we think the bulk of the business will come from. Yes, it will take off. You might see it in Home Depot and Lowe's someday when the price gets down as we start to put this system onto a piece of silicon. It'll become practical and affordable at that level for retail sales. Not quite yet. It's probably going to take about 2 years to get there. But in the meantime, we're dealing with Ford Motor Pro Vehicle to bake into their police cruiser platform 4 of our sensors, one basically on each side of the squad car, if you will, or the police cruiser, to prevent ambushing from happening. We've lost 24 officers here domestically in the past year that we're aware of to basically a gang assassination of an officer behind the wheel. They're sitting on their laptops or their smartphone doing their work, cleaning up, or being alerted where to go to next, and they just don't have their head up and they can't see around. We're going to be that extra set of eyes, completely overlapping by a factor of 2, give them a 360-degree warning system that says some idiot's approaching with a weapon exposed. You may want to move, you may want to arm yourself and get ready. You go to the recreational side, there's joggers out there. We hear all the time about, people being attacked in park from, stupid people attacking a walker, a jogger, a runner, what have you. Again, a year or 2, when this gets down to the consumer-esque form factor, it'll take off into that world. We're talking with a number of the auto manufacturers, and this, I didn't believe this until I heard it myself from 2 of them. Honda is one and Hyundai is another one. In a couple of years, you will actually be able to purchase a vehicle for a ride-share oriented option package. And part of that, they're thinking of adding Gunsens for not only operator safety for the folks in the back seat, and again, from harm around them. Because again, if you're delivering prescriptions, there may be some situations in some unsavory neighborhoods where local gang members are trying to earn their stripes, and they start robbing, whether it's the Amazon truck or the ride share that's delivering pharmaceuticals to grandma's house. They'll stop that vehicle, rob them for the contents of that vehicle, and maybe some harm would come to that operator. So there are ride share versions of major motor companies that are coming to bear to bring options like that to the marketplace as standard. We're working with drone companies, as I said before, some of the big names, some of the smaller name, and some of the unsung heroes that come to us through special operators are looking for this kind of payload. It's an amazing technology, which is why I started out this conversation saying we're a horizontal play. This thing plays everywhere. Smart cities, smart homes, military. I mean, you pick the vertical, and the technology has an unfortunate need for being present.
So we were also, and Bret knows all this, he's designed it. We're also a channel play. There's no way that Bret or I want to scale a team of salespeople and operators to be able to go out and cover the globe, and we will be a global company in 5 years. In 3 to 5 years, we have opportunities in South America, in Europe, where having conversations with British consulate, French consulate, Australia, where knife violence is rampant. I mean, knife violence in those countries is a much bigger problem than it is in the United States with gun violence. So they want it yesterday. So where do we go in 3 to 5 years? Whether it's an exit, an IPO, everything's on the table. But as many lives as we can save is the mission of our company. That's for sure.
Michael, you brought up the word privacy. I want to go back to that word. Now, admittingly, I'm going to ask a question I'm not all that well informed on, but I do remember a number of years ago with the Chicago has had a terrible problem, on the west side, the south side, with gun violence. And if I'm not mistaken, and there was an effort to bring in some technology at the time that was going to help detect gun violence, the shootings, and then the police can respond. I'd like you to kind of talk about, if that's true, and ultimately those efforts, as I understand it, were pushed back. They were scaled back and ultimately ended. So because I don't know if that's because of the technology didn't work, but also despite the issues of violence in some of these neighborhoods, the community felt like there was just too much surveillance going on. And so I would like you to address that there's still, even though in the communities where there are problems, that members of that community don't want to have, big government looking at them, and you're not government per se, but the idea is that this is one more technology that is somehow monitoring. Now, obviously, that's not what you're doing, but there is a gap between what you're doing and what the community thinks that's going on. So I know there's maybe 1 or 2 questions in there, maybe more, that's not real clear, but I want to throw that out to you.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. Thanks for the question. Specifically in regard to Chicago and the right to privacy, I mean, it's a paramount concern for many marginalized communities. People don't want to be surveilled. That doesn't matter if it's video or audio. And some of our competitors, or all of our competitors at this point, violate privacy. I mean, you can spin it any way you really want to, but there are audio detections that are looking for the bang, looking for the gun bang, looking for muzzle flash, and they're recording 24/7, 365. So any conversations, and this is detectable, you can go on Google and look this up. I'm not telling anybody anything new. They're actually recording audio constantly. So conversations are being recorded. There are a huge number or a large number of video analytics AI companies out there that bolt on to existing CCTV cameras that are recording and transmitting either on-premise into an inferencing system that's a server and a neural network full of NVIDIA chips, GPUs, or it's being transmitted up to the cloud. Those are on public networks. You can't deny that they're being recorded, and because of that privacy issue, in Chicago is a good example. There's several in Tennessee, in Texas as well, where they've been deinstalled or pilots have been overturned. It's just not worth it for a lot of folks. The way we designed the technology is it is a visual-based system. It is a camera-based system. It's a vision-based system. But we're not extracting the data out of that image other than the data that the weapon actually perceives. So we're scanning at 30 to 60 frames a second today. one frame comes in and it gets analyzed for a weapon. If a weapon is not detected or detected, it doesn't matter. The next frame comes in, deletes the first frame. There is no memory within the unit to actually store that data. And you hack into the unit for if you can. There is nothing to hack into. The only point of contact for our unit is a 4G, 5G cellular network, and all that contains is metadata. It's a longitude, latitude, a z-axis, a timestamp, and a type of threat. It's a few bytes of information that gets transmitted, nothing else. The neural network and the AI is completely separated from that. It's almost like an air gap between the two. So there is no data to actually hack into. That allows us, as Bret pointed out, to be installed in areas where nobody else can install. Bathrooms, bedrooms, locker rooms. It doesn't matter where. So I feel that most of these locations where these will be installed, people will have the confidence that that they're not being surveilled, that they're not being recorded, and we're out there just saving lives, and that's it. You want to add to that, Bret?
I would simply add, I mean, if a judge slapped us with a court order to give imagery data, it would probably, by the time the court order got issued, it would be overwritten hundreds of thousands, if not millions of times at that frame rate. And so, again, we don't want to transmit data other than metadata. It's foolish to burden the public internet, especially in a disaster scenario, which we didn't talk about. Let's say you're in a stadium and you know, down here in Michigan, right? You got 110,000 football fans in a giant university stadium. And let's say some knucklehead lights off a bomb. You've got how many cell phones trying to emit video data, audio data, phone calls, what have you. The cell phone networks are going to melt down. Domestically, our device sits on a government-based FirstNet authority backbone, whether it's AT&T, FirstNet, Verizon Frontline, or T-Mobile Priority. We are the first non-governmental, non-telecom device granted priority interrupt capability of our device, sending that metadata onto those networks to get to first responders and to get to the public, because when stuff happens, people need to know about it. It can't sit in a clogged queue waiting to get loose. Conversely, if this is a government deployment, we would treat that the same as a private cloud. The government's got its own cellular service, MVNO capable services, SIMs, you know, physical form factor SIMs or eSIMs, doesn't matter to us. And the whole device or set of devices can be implemented in a private cloud infrastructure where the government controls, the military controls those devices, and the public don't even know they're employed or deployed out in the field. So public or private cloud deployments possible as well.
Well, follow up on the question about events. Of course, you know, in our state of California, we've got some major events taking place. We've got the Super Bowl next year in Santa Clara. We've got the Olympics in Los Angeles in 3 years' time. As I arrived, like I said, I'm doing this call from Salt Lake City, and as I deplaned yesterday, reminded that Salt Lake is once again hosting the Winter Olympics in a few years. And actually, I mentioned George Davis is on here, and his business partner John Sullivan is retired with the LA Sheriff's Office, and you know, my conversations have been that still to this day that, you know, when it comes to event security, there's still a battle between the bureaucracy. So it's really the question: how are you navigating the bureaucracy of getting something that you feel is truly life-saving that can be deployed, and the bureaucracy of getting those contracts and getting the yes, we'll use this, and not just for these sporting events, but also again for the agencies, right? You're talking about school districts. I've always said the local school district is more bureaucratic than the federal government.
In many ways.
In many ways. So how do you deal with that? And I guess that's probably one question: is the bureaucracy, because you are a startup, you know, a young business, And tell us also about your fundraising. I mean, you've raised money? Are you fundraising money now? And how does that help you with your longer term roadmap?
Well, let's start with the former and we'll get to the latter. Regarding events, as I started off, I think in my comments, we want to remain an OEM and licensing kind of company, never selling to end users. So in that regard, to use a commercial term, we're building a channel partner community. So for large events, I'm dealing with IIFX, guys who deal with the fan and customer experience as a top-down selling tool. We're working with the ground, blocking and tackling companies like Capgemini, who are patrolling the hallways of the USOC for the Olympics in LA, the FIFA World Cup that's coming here as well in the meantime, and working that from the ground up with the digital twin model in mind. It's also the fact that they have a government and entity within Capgemini. So they've got the GSA schedule. They've got the state and local schedules that we don't have. And again, quite frankly, I don't want to have 2 more birthdays trying to build a sales team to try and go do that stuff and watch the business pass me by with my competitors. So we're bringing those partners to bear to focus on those events, to focus on the stadium experience, the big business that just takes time. You have to know the people, the process, the budget, the likes and dislikes, all the things you need to do to understand a customer event. So in that regard, we're handling those big things through partners.
Yeah. Can I add to that as well?
Surely, jump in.
So yeah, we've also got partners that are Fortune 100 companies like AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and many others that Bret alluded to. They come with a massive amount of credibility, and as a young startup, that's hard to prove. But when you've got partners who are backing you, who want this technology and they want it yesterday, that adds a lot of credibility to the Gunsens team and our technology as being really viable. Touching on the investment side, we raised a seed round, basically 50% oversubscribed in about 3 months. Didn't take much to kick it off, and we were very happy with that and our first investors. We do have a bridge and A round planned. The bridge to A round right now, or secondary seed for 2.5 is open and starting to raise. Our global Fortune 5-10 customer, we anticipate in less than 30-45 days having purchase orders. It will close our seed round pretty much instantly with a PO from them and POs and commitments from several other companies, and open the $20 million A round. And we have a pretty substantial number of lead investors who are just waiting for that feedback to pull the trigger. We're pretty excited.
Yeah, and I will add to that. Again, I've been in this business 44 years of high tech. It's been an interesting ride. We've also been taking orders, whether they're credit card based, classic PO based, from schools and from businesses. There is a queue waiting for production to be delivered for. So this is an interesting technology. People obviously believe in it. We've been told, they've scanned the competition. They can't even understand why people would go with the competition. One of the factors in this fundraise that's important to understand is we're a 2-step installation process. And we're also 1 to 2 orders of magnitude less expensive than our competition. So when you have airport style walk-through security devices, they can be, or at schools, for instance, that style of device at a school is $50,000 capital acquisition. Yes, you can spread it out as an operating expense, as a lease kind of a payment, but it can go up to $250,000. Some of the audio detection systems are in the $500,000 to $1 million a square mile. Michael and I and our CEO figured out that we could do, if we wanted a smart environment with today's technology, with the shortest range that we'll ever have in our devices, we could do that same square mile for 1/3 to 1/4 of the expense, and now offer hyper granularity that the other competitor couldn't do. So when you communicate that to investors, there are so many value add facets of this product. It's almost hard to believe that a young company with only 7 employees has come up with all of that net value add. And is this a dream or is it not a dream? And I think a lot of people are interested, as Michael said. We get the first couple products on the street, and closing the bridge round and the A round is not going to be an issue for us.
Got 3 more minutes here. I just want to give each of you the opportunity for some last words. What is it? Yeah, last words, and what is it ultimately you see the totality of the company going forward?
I'll kick that off for the guests on the call here. Think of this as the ultimate R&D tool with a base technology. I mean, if you're already thinking of other use cases, other deployment models, physical incarnations, maybe even logical incarnations, we've thought of a few of those ourselves. Talk to us. We're very willing and open. We're engineers at heart. We love engineering things, and we always want to be that engineering team. We don't see ourselves getting any larger than maybe 20 or 30 employees. And again, let the channel sell to the end users. The channel will ultimately sell to all agencies around the world for us. We just want to be that smart group of engineers that does that next round of value-added engineering for whatever's needed.
Michael?
Yep. Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate the time and invite and the great questions. It's very much appreciated. So at heart, we are an impact company. We are here to save lives. But impact opens the door for a multitude of different technologies. So we are not only a gun threat detection company, we are a threat detection company at heart. And as Bret said, we are an engineering-focused design company with a multitude of different sensor availability to us that we're developing now for everything from traditional weapons like guns, knives, sharps, and shanks, to mannerisms and other technologies that I just don't want to get into on this call, and a bank of patents that have already been filed, and more to come. We're excited about the technology. We're excited about the future, and we're excited about the ability to prevent loss of life and injury.
Wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you to our attendees. This will be up on YouTube in the next 24 hours. But great conversation, and we will end it here. Thank you all. Wishing everyone a great day ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye to everyone.